Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast. We're talking about video games and everything happening in the industry. E3 week for us. We're talking about Nintendo, and we're going to be talking with Logan. Thank you for joining us, Logan.
I can't believe it's E3 week already. What is going on?
I know, man. Just around the bend. So close. Yes, we're going to be talking about Nintendo, what they've been doing over the last year, including Switch and all of that stuff, and then we're going to be talking about what we expect to see at the E3 conference, or rather their spotlight. They don't really do a traditional conference anymore. And then we'll go into our predictions, where we'll come up with weird, wacky things that we hope to see Nintendo do, which in Nintendo fashion, they normally do weird and wacky things. So going over last year's E3 for Nintendo wasn't a huge thing. As we knew going in, they were only going to really cover Breath of the Wild. About a month before the Nintendo E3 spotlight for Legend of Zelda, we also got news about Pokemon Sun and Moon, and they covered that a little bit as well in the spotlight. The spotlight was an hour and 20 minutes, all Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and all Pokemon Sun and Moon, majority Pokemon Sun and Moon, and that's it. There was really nothing else. As we stated, we already knew that going in, that there wasn't going to be anything, which was kind of disappointing, but over the course of the last year until the Switch released, they were in this weird limbo state where the Wii U was a failure. They had the 3DS that was selling games and stuff like that, but we didn't really know what their direction was, right? We knew the rumblings of the NX, and that's pretty much it. Really quick, one or two sentence summary from you guys. Do you think, now in hindsight, them only focusing on Breath of the Wild and that little bit on Sun and Moon was a smart move moving forward?
Yes.
Simple as that.
Well, okay. Yes, because that was all they had, and that was all that was coming out in the near future, right? It would have been ideal if they had more games in the pipeline, but given that they didn't, that's kind of what they had to emphasize at E3.
I think that I'll have to actually see this year and what they do. If they were holding so much back that it makes this year worth it, then I would say yes, but otherwise it might be a no, so I'll have to get back to you.
At the time, I was definitely surprised that they decided not to announce what became the Switch at E3. I thought that was a really strange move. Looking back at it now, Zelda demoed so well that it was probably a smart idea, because we all left E3 and that was the game. I know personally that was the game I was still most taken aback by, and that was all they showed. So in hindsight, it was probably a good move, but at the time last year, it was odd.
Yeah.
If I had to call it right now, I would say no. I don't think it was a good move.
All right. So after that event, we had the September Direct, which we're not really going to dive into. It was 3DS focused. They talked about Super Mario Maker and a bunch of other games coming to the 3DS. Kind of like, hey, yeah, the Wii U is dying. We're going to port these over. So we're not going to really tackle that too much. After that, we had the Nintendo Switch reveal trailer, which went up. Everyone got super excited. I thought it was a really well done trailer. We had some weird teases to what would eventually be known as Super Mario Odyssey and a couple of other things. I think it set up hype well. Some people felt that it was a little too long between that initial reveal trailer and what would eventually become the Switch reveal event, which was at the beginning of January. Do you guys remember how you initially felt when you saw that reveal trailer for the Switch in, I believe, November, December?
Stoked. That's it.
All these one word, yes, stoked.
I would go with a little less than stoked, but I would say I was half stoked, not fully stoked.
Mildly excited, huh?
Mildly stoked.
Yeah.
All I can remember about that reveal was the song that played I had stuck in my head for like a week after that.
Like something, a good time or something.
Yeah, I gotta have a good time or something like that. Besides that, I mean, it was cool to just see the confirmation of the rumors we had been hearing for like a year and a half, 2 years finally come to fruition. Like the portable home console hybrid was actually a thing, which I think we all knew, but it was cool to actually see it working.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is like seeing it in motion is like, oh, this is actually a thing that exists, you know?
Because the visions we all had in our head, you know, based on all those mock-ups and those weird drawings we had seen based on the rumors, it was all ugly. And like we couldn't figure out, you know, what this thing would actually look like. So seeing it was kind of like, oh, okay, it looks, like a piece of technology.
The one that was shaped like an oval and was like an all glass screen with 2 little nubs on each end of it. We're like, oh god, no, please no.
It was totally fake.
Yeah. Oh god. So then we actually, over the course of a while, we eventually got the announcement of a Switch reveal event. And at this event, they showed off the Switch. They showed off all the cool new things with the hardware, the HD Rumble. We got the release date, which was way sooner than anyone anticipated. And we saw some titles. We saw, obviously, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We saw 1-2 Switch. I don't remember if they showed off snipper clips at all. But it was a decent reveal event. It was mostly focused around the hardware and what the hardware is bringing to the table. And they're basically showing off that this is a console that's also handheld and you can use it in so many different ways. I thought the Switch reveal went over okay. I think it could have been done a little bit better. There could have been a little bit more games shown. But as far as selling the hardcore fans on the hardware itself, I think they did a decent job. I don't think it was definitely way better than the PS4 Pro event. So I think they did a decent job with the Switch reveal event. What about you guys? What do you guys think?
Yeah, their presentation was just awkward. Like, yeah, the hardware news that they were communicating was good for the most part, I think, and it sold enough people. But the weird, like the language barrier, things just didn't translate well. I don't know. And then the software, other than Zelda, it was, I don't know, pretty much a dud for me at least.
Yeah.
I would say I was unstoked after this event. I feel like it was, this, like, after seeing this event, I'm like, yeah, you guys probably shouldn't do an E3 press conference because that would be a disaster. It's weird, man. They could have just... they were playing T-ball and they couldn't even get a base hit. And that was the saddest part. Like, they just walked up to the tee and they just couldn't even get it out of the infield. And they really had a chance to knock it out of the park. They had all their ducks in a row. Or, well, it would seem that way. With the trailer that came out on YouTube for the Switch, I felt like, okay, well, this is introducing the hardware. Now this press conference is going to introduce the software. And it did. It just didn't introduce the software that we were expecting or the type of software we were expecting. And we got a lot of what I felt like were half-assed reveals with, stuff like Xenoblade and then...
which is not coming out this year.
Right. There were several games like that where it was just kind of like... Well,
the Shin Megami Tensei teaser that didn't
exactly.
Well, I was going to bring up the weird No More Heroes.
Yeah, same thing with Fire
Which
Emblem.
I don't even know if that was a reveal. Like,
with Fire Emblem, it's basically like there is a Fire Emblem game, but that's about it. And so it was very underwhelming, and I felt like they really muffed that event.
We've talked about this, but like it seems like the Switch was rushed out, to meet fiscal year demands and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of it is why that event. Though there was some weird, like, it didn't translate well to the Western audience because that's how a lot of those Japanese conferences go, but I do think a lot of that stuff was rushed. It's like, oh, you need this Fire Emblem Warriors trailer now? Okay, we'll get you something. Oh, you need something related to Shin Megami Tensei? Okay, we'll throw something together. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it felt like...
Exactly.
Yeah. It didn't feel very prepared.
They were very teaser, very, like, the definition... Because teaser trailer gets thrown around all the time with like a 2.5 minute Star Wars trailer, but that's what teasers used to actually be, where it's just like a title, just the font or whatever, and that's all they had was these little teasers.
Well, yeah, and like sorry, go ahead, Lonnie.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, like, at the time too, like I'm thinking back to it, like we had all of these pie in the sky dreams and hopes, and we had been hearing a bunch of rumors like this new Mario game is actually shipping at the launch of the Switch in March, and so we were like all waiting to hear about that. And of course, like looking back now, like that doesn't make any sense, and we had put way too much stock in that. But yeah, it seemed like the only my big takeaway after the event was they're only launching this because Breath of the Wild is ready and literally nothing else around it is ready. So it seemed like Breath of the Wild was just forcing their hands to get the system out. And they had locked themselves into this March release window 12 months prior, which was really strange that they announced their release date for the console, I think, in like April or March of 2016.
See, I think that connects back to what Jared was saying about the fiscal year thing.
Yeah.
And I think the Switch, the Zelda thing is more... I really don't think they had planned until probably late 2016 to put Zelda on the Switch, because the developers were talking about it. They're like, oh yeah, it was really easy. We just kind of, redid the button prompts and stuff. I'm like, Jesus, so you guys are just by the seat of your pants, I guess. But
they
I think it was
for
it was
Switch.
very...
I think in like May or June of the year
early
before.
on, yeah.
Right, yeah.
It was So
Well, I think initially when they were first developing that game, it was supposed to be the Zelda for Wii U, and that didn't happen because obviously the Wii U didn't sell, and they were in this weird part where they wanted to get Zelda out there. I bet you that they even thought about possibly, releasing Zelda on the Wii U and then waiting and then releasing it on the Switch when the Switch came out, but they're like, that doesn't make any sense. Let's just push the Switch out there. Let's get Zelda on it at the same time. So
let's keep pushing Zelda.
Yeah, obviously people wanted Zelda. It sold more than the actual hardware. We've seen the numbers. But after this reveal event, which was surprising with the release date and everything in March, we had the Fire Emblem Direct, which is surprising in and of its own for Fire Emblem to have its own Direct, which I thought was really cool. I'm a huge Fire Emblem guy, so to see the franchise have its own Direct was really cool. We had some 3DS announcements, which aren't too important to this conversation itself. But we did get the announcement of Fire Emblem for Nintendo Switch, which got a release date for 2018. Not really surprising. The traditional Fire Emblem games are great games, but they don't seem that they're very intensive as far as a development cycle. So it coming out that soon isn't really surprising. Super stoked for that. Also, we got the announcement of Fire Emblem Warriors at the reveal event, and then we got another sneak peek here. And that's for fall 2017, which once again, those games don't seem like they're very development heavy, so it wouldn't be surprising if that game comes out this fall as well and hits that target. That's also for 3DS, coming out as Switch as well. And then we had the Fire Emblem Heroes mobile announcement, which isn't too privy to this discussion. So yeah, the Fire Emblem Direct went over interestingly. I think that it was cool to already get an announcement. Fire Emblem is one of those things that, like, the fans are such fervent fans of the franchise that they're not sitting here anticipating a title. No one cares what the next title of the next Fire Emblem game is. They're just happy that there's a new one coming to Switch, right? So I'm excited for that. I think that's huge. That's definitely something to mark on your calendar. So, like, people who do get early invested in the Switch, they're like, okay, I'm already hearing things about next year, because one of the biggest issues with the Wii U were the giant gaps in game releases for games people cared about, right? So already kind of staking claim to these games that you can already expect next year after, obviously we'll get into the next part of this, but knowing what's coming later is huge. I think that's great for Fire Emblem. Are any of you guys excited for that Fire Emblem game coming out next year? I'm not really into Fire Emblem Warriors, so I don't know if you guys would be.
Should be
I'm
cool.
pumped, man. I'm pumped. I would even say I'm fully stoked. I think you were expressing a bit of surprise that Fire Emblem had its own Direct at the beginning, and I think that I was surprised as well when I heard that was going to be the case, but it definitely seems like Nintendo's pushing this franchise. They're not going to let it fall by the wayside. Yeah. They see that they have something that is popular and is critically successful, and so I can appreciate absolutely what they're doing with this franchise, especially since, this is a hardcore strategy franchise. This is not something that everybody like Kirby or Mario or Donkey Kong can just jump in and have a good time with. So I can appreciate what they're doing there, and I think that it's great to see that, because that gives you hope for their other series. We could get a Mario Direct, we could get a Metroid Direct, we could get a Zelda Direct at some point, and that so that just gives me hope for the future of their other franchises.
Yeah. Do you guys think so? I think one thing that the Switch is going to solve is Nintendo seems to have this issue where they'd rather release a game on the bigger install base than where obviously it's proper business, right? So with Fire Emblem, we haven't really seen a console Fire Emblem for a while. And I think that was because they saw the success of their handheld. So like, well, we're going to put these games where the install base is. I think one of the beautiful things about Switch, once the 3DS is kind of pushed out of the way, is that it solves that problem where you own the Nintendo console. I would say just hardware, because hopefully what we all expect to happen is that all of their teams are going to be working on games for this sole piece of hardware. So you'll get the handheld titles, you'll get the bigger console-ish experiences, and I think that's great, because Like for Fire Emblem, we're getting a new Fire Emblem game next year. We don't know if that's a handheld game, which are great, or if they're the more traditional console type ones, or maybe we'll get both. Like, and that, I think that's huge. That we're probably going to get to a place where we don't have to worry about the install base being split because it's all in one location, right?
Yeah, and like the thing I'll say, so I can't really speak to Fire Emblem too much because I have never played a Fire Emblem game, but I've always wanted to, and I've like always, that's a series that I've always really wanted to jump into, and I'm totally digging the Switch so far. Like I am taking it with me all over the place, and like I'm really enjoying the hardware, and I'm looking for more titles for it. So just
of course
the
you
thought,
are.
So yeah, of course. So combine a hardware that I'm really enjoying, and I'm still searching for more games to play right now. Like seeing that off in the distance, like I would probably actually dip my toe into the water and actually try the series out for the first time with that. So I mean, that's about as much as I can speak to with the series right now. But I'm excited to try that franchise out finally.
Well, I think
I
that
really am going to jump in.
I think that what you just said echoes what a lot of people will be doing with the Switch. You know, like I said, it's a more hardcore franchise. Jared mentioned you haven't had a console installment in a while, so I think as popular as Fire Emblem is, and I think it's definitely got its own solid popularity, but I think with all these new people coming to the Switch that probably haven't been paying too much attention to Nintendo in the last few years, I think there's going to be a lot of people playing that game next year.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing is like the Switch is already a piece of hardware that people enjoy playing on, and people are having these issues of like they're playing on their Xbox One or their PlayStation 4 or their PC, and they're like, oh man, if only this was on Switch. And that's a good thought for Nintendo because that means that people want to try out new things or try things that they already are familiar with on this, right? So I think it's good for Nintendo moving forward. The last Direct we've had was the one that happened in April. This was the ARMS Splatoon Direct where we got the release dates for both of those games. We also got the announcement that Minecraft was coming to Nintendo Switch, which is huge. And you know, people are like, well, Microsoft owns that. That's weird. No, it's not. Minecraft sells. Of course they're going to put it wherever they can. If there's a new piece of hardware, Minecraft's going to be on it. That's how it works. So I think that was huge. We also saw a newer sneak peek at Sonic Forces, which was really cool. They also showed off Sonic Mania, but it was nothing we haven't seen before. Like I said, the big thing was we got the release dates for ARMS and Splatoon 2. The next part I want to go into, as we're going to be talking about what we expect from Nintendo this year, E3, it seems like Nintendo has this plan of releasing a decently big game every month for the foreseeable future, right? I think they noticed that the biggest problem with the Wii U was that they had months upon months where there wasn't big releases. And though these might not be big releases to people personally, just on the grand scheme of things, they seem like they're really good. So I'm going to go through what we have so far. There's also some rumored speculation as far as when titles are hitting the rest of the year, and then we can have a discussion about that and what Nintendo's going to be doing at E3. So for March, we had Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, obviously. Then for April, we had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is huge. Then for April, we had I forgot what April. Oh no, I said April. Yeah, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Then for May we had Minecraft that came out this month, which is a huge release as far as sales numbers are going to be. People are going to pick up Minecraft. For June we have ARMS. That was at the April Direct where they announced that. For July we have Splatoon 2. Now here's where it comes in, where some of the weird rumor-ish kind of things are happening. So for August, this is the date or the month where people are rumoring the Mario Rabbids game. And we can go into whether this is a legitimate release date or not and whether the game exists or not. I'm just going over all of these as far as the month-to-month basis, and then we can cover the conversation afterwards. So then September, this is kind of the rumored date for Fire Emblem Heroes. People are expecting this to come out this fall, obviously. Fire Emblem Warriors. I don't know why I said Heroes. That's a mobile game.
Oh.
Warriors, okay. Yeah, the Dynasty Warriors-esque Fire Emblem game. Yeah. October, this is where people are speculating Pokemon Stars. Traditionally, Pokemon games have come out in September, October, and November. So any of these 3 months currently don't have a Nintendo game slotted in there. So you can kind of put Pokemon Stars, if that is a thing, somewhere in those 3 months.
The stars are aligning on this one, boys.
Next up, November. This is where people are rumoring Super Mario Odyssey to come out. Makes sense for Black Friday. People are going to be going to pick up their Switches. Why not release a Mario game? It's going to sell like hotcakes. Obviously, you want to get that in there. Some people believe this game might not even come out this year, might get delayed. But this is the rumored slot for Super Mario Odyssey is at November. And as Logan previously mentioned, this game probably isn't coming out this year, but this is the rumored spot for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, December. So as far as it sits, there seems to be months in which a big game is coming out for Nintendo. And if this happens to be the case, I think this is huge. We can talk about if this is actually going to be the case where we see a big game every month. And we can just talk about what we expect to see for Nintendo's E3 presentation this year. So go ahead. I've been talking too much.
Well, even though everybody hated my pun a second ago, I do think that the stars are aligning for Pokemon Stars. The reason that I say that is because, as you said, we've got these open slots in the fall ready for the Switch. We've got the E3 presentation that is going to be Switch focused coming up, and that would be perfect time to announce it because it's not a brand new game. It is, or seemingly is, kind of a port, and so it wouldn't need all this build up. And so, and there's a couple other little things, the fact that we've seen job postings at Nintendo for Pokemon games. And then there's some other article today that said, they had posted something about Pokemon, and now Pokemon fans are freaking out thinking it might have a connection to Stars. I didn't see exactly what that was, but it at least seems that some things are coming together, and hopefully the stars do align, because I really, really want this to happen. I think this could be huge for the Switch. I mean, obviously it would sell like hotcakes, whether it's going to sell like hotcakes either way, but I just think that's going to be, that and Mario are going to be your first two big system sellers, because as big of a system seller as Zelda has been, it's not as much as those two, I think, because it is a little less approachable, a little less mainstream.
Yeah.
I think that's all probably likely, with the exception of Xenoblade hitting in December. But I think also on top of all that, you get virtual console games started to get sprinkled in, right? Just two at a time. Now they're just gonna just stretch it out as much as they can, right? So starting with like NES and SNES and so on.
Yeah,
that would be nice. And then it's not a game release, but we also have the online service coming this fall.
That's true.
Yeah. Logan, I have a question for you. Do you think that there's a lot of games here that are rumored? We don't know the Mario Rabbids game exists. We don't know if Stars exist necessarily, and we're not sure if Xenoblade is going to hit this year. Do you think one of those month slots where all of these are rumored? Do you think one of those months gets taken up by a port we don't know yet exists? Super Mario Maker, Smash Brothers coming to the Nintendo Switch?
I have still always thought that Mario Maker has to come to the Switch at some point. Now, whether that comes this year or next year or some other time in the future, that's just a game that, in my opinion, Nintendo wouldn't want to die on the Wii U. And especially with how well the Switch has been selling, you would think that that game would sell really well for them. And plus, like, myself included, like, I never jumped into Mario Maker, like, and that's something I would definitely be willing to jump into as well. And I think a lot of people thought that game might come over to the Switch before we knew that it had a touchscreen. And so now knowing that the Switch does indeed have a touchscreen, like, I think it makes sense for that game to show up at some point. So, honestly, I think that makes sense as a fall game for them, potentially, like, around September. That was one of my predictions I had, but it was like one of my lesser ones that I probably wasn't going to go to. So I do think another port in addition to like what they just did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe makes sense. And then the other thing I'll say too is Dom mentioned Virtual Console. The other thing too is there's a lot of really good indies sprinkled in between these big releases. That they had that indie showcase. We really didn't touch on that, but there's a lot of good games coming to the Switch over the next few months, ranging from Ukulele's coming at some point. I know Rhyme is coming in quarter 3 of 2017, which isn't. Who knows how that's going to turn out? That comes out later this month as well. But then we've also got like Puyo Puyo Tetris. Well, that's not really an indie game. That just came out as well. And then Mr. Shifty's already been doing well on the Switch as well. And then there was one other big one that SteamWorld Dig 2 is coming at some point later this year. I can't remember exactly.
And didn't Stardew Valley release already too?
Stardew Valley comes out this summer, I think, in July.
That's going to be huge too. Yep.
Which is going to be huge. Like I'll buy that again.
Street Fighter 2, Super something, Street Fighter 2 this month.
The Final Fighters or something like that, the Final Challengers. That comes out at some point. There's a bunch of good smaller titles sprinkled in between all of these potential big ones. And I think the list that you have there is probably a pretty safe bet that all those games you listed are coming out at some point throughout this year. Whether they hit in those specific months, we'll see. But at least it shows that Nintendo is answering people's complaints with the Wii U. Like, one of my biggest complaints was that, like you said, they would release one big game and then that would be it for 6 to 8 months, and then they would release another one. But that was it. There was nothing in between to keep you going, and I think they're doing a good job of a landmark game every couple months, whether you want the game or not. Like with ARMS and Splatoon, like, it doesn't matter. It's still a landmark title that, like, it's still a big title for them to put out, and then in between there's still a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I think another thing too, going along with the indies, is I think for PS4 and Xbox One, I think PC ports that don't necessarily come out at the same time on the consoles as they do on PC, I think have a tough time of succeeding unless they're tremendously great. And I think Nintendo has this spot now where these older indie games that have only really been on PC, they have a higher chance to succeed on the Switch just because of its portability, and it doesn't have a huge, like, strong, large library like Xbox One and PS4 do. So I think it doesn't get lost in the weeds as often. So I think developers who are strictly on PC that develop these smaller indie games that kind of catch fire on PC, I think now they have a higher chance of wanting to port their games to the Switch as opposed to the Xbox One and PS4, because they see that they probably have a higher chance of success in sales. So I think that's huge too.
I think a lot of people. I was just gonna say too. One last thing with the indies is, like, I think a lot of people are finally seeing what I originally saw in my Vita. Was that the Vita was? I always used my Vita as an indie machine. I never really. I played a AAA title here or there, or Persona or an Uncharted. But that was always an indie machine for me, and that's always the way I looked at it. And now that I think there is a bigger machine out there with the Switch, and it's got the Nintendo brand tied to it and stuff like that, I think people are finally learning the same thing that me personally, what I learned with the Vita back in the day, which is having this handheld that you can take with you on the go really works well. Because when you get home and you want to sit down to play a game, more often than not, I think personally I choose to play the AAA games that you can only play at home, and I think that indies sometimes fall in between the cracks. Having those indies with you on the go makes you much more likely to play them, and they're just as good of games that you want to, like, give your time to, but it's just harder to when you've got an Overwatch or something competing for your time.
Yeah. One game we didn't talk about that's potentially hitting this year too, which will be huge in terms of sales, but I don't think any of us are overly excited for it, is Skyrim. That was one that was talked about at the initial reveal event. It's slated for this year.
Will that be huge in terms of sale? Like, seriously?
I think so. I think it's one of those games that, like, you're sitting there and you're like, I finished Zelda, because a bunch of people are going to finish Zelda by its only game, really, like the big meaty experience, right? And people are going to be like, well, what other open world experience can I feel like playing something open world on the go.
I think Skyrim's going to sell a lot of copies.
Yeah.
And I think my biggest question, I am mildly stoked at this point, but I think
bringing it all around.
It's all coming down to, we still don't know if it's the special edition, which I think means that it isn't if we don't know already. So I'm wondering if we're getting the DLC. I'm wondering if we're getting improved graphics. I mean, I'm sure it would have to be. There's no way they're just going to, like, take the Xbox 360 version and port that to the Switch now that they have this special edition. I feel like they would just port that one down maybe and not call it the special edition, but who knows?
You have a point. So if you look at the Switch, it's nowhere near as powerful as a PS4. Well, I mean, it's not too far off, but it's definitely more powerful than an Xbox 360 and PS3, right? Which was where Skyrim originally launched. So
Right.
You got to think it's at least better than those versions, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a Game of the Year
that's
version instead of the special edition version, probably, is what I assume.
Right.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
I'm excited about that, and I've never really played enough of Skyrim to feel like I've played Skyrim, so I'll definitely be picking that up. And I feel like at least you're gonna get, I feel like, at least one RPG this year between either that or Xenoblade, and I'm thinking it's gonna be that, because I don't think it will be Xenoblade.
Yeah, and like Skyrim is a game that I probably won't buy on the Switch just because I put in over 200 hours on it when I had it on 360 and stuff. So it's like I'm done with that game, but I do think it's going to sell well because, like you said, I think it's one of those games where, like, it's it's a meaty game, and I think to people who own a Switch, a lot of people, it'll justify the console purchase because though people do enjoy the big releases of the Marios and the Zeldas, they still like to see third-party stuff that isn't Rayman for the 8th time. So I think it'll help people justify in their own minds their purchase of like, oh yeah, this has Skyrim, cool, I can play a non-Nintendo game. You know what I mean? And it's gonna be kind of weird like that. I hope that game still hits, and I agree with you guys that I don't think it's gonna be straight the 360 version. That doesn't make any sense. So we know it's the Nintendo conference. It's not a conference; it's a spotlight. It's going to be happening this coming Tuesday, June 13th, 9 a.m. Pacific, early in the morning, and it's going to be followed by a Treehouse event. One rumor that we can talk about real quick that has been making waves, I guess, the whole month of May was people were talking about Retro working on Metroid Prime 4, which this seems like the rumor that happens every pre-E3.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the more interesting part about this is I don't want to solely focus on the Retro thing because we've been talking about what Retro's new game is for 2 to 3 years at this point. Their last game was Tropical Freeze in 2014. I want to talk about the other part of this rumor that there's 2 Metroid games in development. One of them is Metroid Prime 4 by Retro, and the other one is a traditional 2D side-scrolling Metroid game.
I thought you were going to say Fusion Force, too.
Oh, God. Federation
Force. Get it right.
I'm sorry. It's just so friggin' generic.
What I really want to ask you guys is, and this is a question that's in every E3 podcast for the end of time until we actually see it, are we seeing a new Metroid game this year?
No.
No.
Wait, are we seeing it at E3? You're not talking about it being released this year?
No. I'm just saying, period. Are we seeing a Metroid game this year at Nintendo's E3 presentation?
Man, it is about damn time. It really is. I think for them to have continued using the Metroid name with Federation Force, I feel like it's getting close to an insult at this point that they are, like Reggie said, basically when people got super pissed off about Federation Force, he said, we are focusing our franchises on the Switch since that's where our focus is going to be pretty soon here. And I think that was him trying to say that we don't want to let a Metroid out to die on the Wii U, because that's exactly what it would have done. And so I feel like, yeah, for them to use the name in Federation Force and then not to have one pretty close to being ready to go on the Switch would be super insulting. Not that Nintendo cares, clearly. Look at the NES Classic and stuff like that. They can be insulting all they want, but it does feel like it's about damn time. And so I think, yeah, we're gonna see something.
For me, I know Dom and Logan both fall on the no side. For me, one interesting thing that's happened is whoever's running the Retro Game Studios Twitter account has been either very cheeky, a serious troll, or is just being as sneaky as they can in regards to what they can and can't say. Somebody was asking if they're working on the next Metroid game, and they replied with a picture of prime ribs. Then somebody asked, another person asked if they were working on a Metroid game, and they simply replied with "Be patient." So they're either doing some serious A-level trolling here, or they're just being very vague and very cheeky. So, I mean, my heart says Metroid shows up this year. My brain says no. But if I had to put money down, I think I'm going to go with my heart. I think we do see Metroid. I'm with you, Jordan.
Ooh.
The thing I'll say about their E3 showings the past few years is all of their showings in general. So, like, preparing for this one today, I listened out of curiosity. I listened back to some of my old podcast episodes myself to see what my predictions were in years past, and they're always way off the mark, like drastically. I am predicting things that would never come true. So I'm trying to think a lot smaller this year, and that's why I say I don't think there will be a Metroid. I really think upwards of 50% of what they show off at E3 is going to center around Super Mario Odyssey this year.
Oh God, I hope not.
And I think it won't be to the extent that they did last year with Breath of the Wild, because obviously they do have the Switch out now, and there's a lot more to show, a lot more potential for them to show off things. But they're not a Sony. They don't show their hand 2 or 3 years in advance like they do. And when they do, they get a lot of crap for it, like they did with Breath of the Wild, where that game was in development for forever. It finally coming out was incredible when it finally did. But yeah, I think they're trying to keep things, and I think this goes directly off of their Switch event in January. They're trying to keep things much more focused on the next 6 to 12 months rather than way down the line. And I think while a potential retro-developed Metroid game could be pretty far along, because like you said, we know they've been working on something for the past 2 or 3, maybe even longer years, I just don't think they do it now. And that's the skeptic in me talking more than anything. Like, I'm trying to put some logic behind it, but the year that I say they won't show a Metroid is the year that they will. But yeah. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think it's, if we see the Metroid game that's coming out this year, because I agree with you that Nintendo isn't somebody that's going to show off a game that doesn't come out for a year or two, unless it's Zelda, I guess. They're not Sony with Final Fantasy 15 or Last Guardian. But then again, we never thought Nintendo would go into the mobile realm with mobile games. So anything's possible at this time. So hopefully we see Metroid. I know we all would want to see that. It's whether or not we think it's going to happen. Those are two different things. Now to get into the most exciting part of the podcast, our predictions. We're going to go round robin, give off our predictions, what we think is going to happen, and we'll see if we're right, which we probably won't be. And Logan, since you're our guest, you can go ahead and go first with your first bold Nintendo prediction.
I'm trying to see where to start here. Okay, so we'll start here. I'm going to go ahead and say that a new Animal Crossing game is announced for the Switch. In addition, we will finally see what that mobile version of Animal Crossing is that they have been talking about. They will reveal both of them at the same time, and somehow the two will be compatible with each other.
I think they're both. I think all that stuff is a lock.
So I think it's time. We've been waiting for that for a while. I think we finally see both of those.
I like the part about them working together somehow, right? Like your mobile game, some kind of crossover with the Switch game.
I think it needs to be a little bit more than a happy home designer where it's just designing the room. Like, I want to think you would be able to check up on more aspects than just that, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see, but the two will work together, I think, in conjunction somehow, because they're both, it's lining up. Like, we need it's time for a new Animal Crossing game. It's been a while since, what was the last one? New Leaf?
Yeah.
I guess. And so since now their platform is both home and portable, like it just makes sense for that game to finally show up.
Real quick.
I think you're at least getting 50% of the prediction, right? I think at the very least one of those two things will happen. We'll see the mobile game, or we'll see the new one, or we'll see both.
So are all three of you guys Animal Crossing fans?
Oh, baby, yes. It was like my addiction
Jared,
on the GameCube. Yes. Yeah, oh god.
Dom?
I'm a no. Never touched one.
Okay.
I'm on the fence. Like, I played a lot of it when I was a kid, and I tried to get back into New Leaf a few years ago, and it didn't really grab me the same way. Okay. If it was on Switch, I'd probably buy it and give it a shot, but we'd have to see.
So, Jared, I guess, is the best person to ask. Can you explain why the fuck I should be playing an Animal Crossing game? Like, I've seen them, and I've had them explained to me, and I just don't get it.
It's a problem. So basically, it's like I don't know. I think it's the same. I don't like Sims. I've never liked the Sims games, but I think it's erring on that same thing of like, you're living another person's life and you're like building up this house to be like a dream house or what you think that character's dream house would be. And there's characters you run into. For me, it's not so much the house building aspect, like building up a nice house and stuff like that, which is funny. The game's predicated on you being in debt, which is a really cool, metaphor for what people currently deal with, being in debt. But it's all the characters you get introduced to, all the people that live in your village, all the people that move away and come in, and it's just basically, it's just like an everyday kind of simulator thing. Like, you go around and collect stuff, and there's like different things you can check mark. Like, on the one in GameCube, it's probably the same thing in every one. There's like a museum where if you catch insects, you collect them and add them to the museum. So it's like a very collect-a-thon-y. It's like it's like comfort food video gaming. You know what I mean? It doesn't require a lot of like focus. It's just something you can pick up and play and chill and check off things on a checklist, and it's just very comfortable and routine filling, you know?
Yeah, it seems relaxing for sure, the vibe of it. Does it have a story? I mean, you said like people move away or whatever, but does it have a storyline?
Based on what you do, you kind of create your own narrative in your head of what's happening and the interactions you have with people. There is a very like thin through line of like you move to this town. There's an overarching guy that owns the property, and you have to pay him off to own your own house and stuff like that. And there's some interesting characters to run into, but it's definitely not like a deep narrative. I think one of the interesting things about that game is me and you can have a conversation 8 months after the game comes out, and we can talk about our own story of that game. Like, you know, you might have this like neighbor who's like a crocodile dude who's like really into like bug collecting or something, and I might have this like sheep neighbor who never leaves her house. Like, and I think it's like one of those water.
Just hearing the descriptions for this game are like really funny.
It sounds fucking adorable, but I don't know if it's a game that I would want to put my time into. You know?
But that's not what. I don't think that's what Animal Crossing is for. It's not one of those games where you sit down and you're like, okay, about to log in 8 hours into Animal Crossing.
No,
that's what I was gonna say.
I just feel like it's something I might try out if it's on sale or something, or if this new one gets great reviews. But it's not something that. It's definitely, you describing this is not something where I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. I might need to check out the old ones, pick one up or something.
Oh yeah,
it's very much like a precursor to. It's a precursor to mobile games to me, in the sense that you really only need to put like, not in a negative way, but like in the sense that you really only need to put maybe like 10 or 15 minutes into it per day or something like that, and then you can feel content with putting it away. And you don't really need to spend like hours upon hours upon hours. But if you want to, there's enough content to keep you there for a while. But you don't really have to.
And the beauty of it being on Switch is that of like, you're at the DMV or you're waiting in line somewhere and you're like, well, I have like 10 to 15 minutes. That's not enough to do a shrine in Zelda or something. There's like, I can't really do much. I have Animal Crossing. Let me hop in, see what's going on with Shelby next door, and like,
Chomper wants to catch some bugs.
Yeah. And you can just, it's a very jolly game. It's a very jolly, relaxing game.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's an automatic buy as far as sales go. Whether or not you want to get it at launch at full price, that's up to you. But I definitely think it's a game that'll be great owning on the Switch, because it's a game that'll be there on your bar when you don't have time to play other games, or you just aren't feeling any other games. Just, let's log in and see what's happening in my Animal Crossing world. You know, it's just it's a jolly, easy going time. You know, a very passive video game.
It kind of sounds like vanilla ice cream. Like you're never just like just gonna be like nah.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess I'll go second after. Or Dom, you're itching to go. I'll let you go first. Or second, rather.
That's what it takes. All right, I'm gonna lead off with something strong, something controversial. So, I'm predicting Pokemon Stars does come out this fall, but it only comes out on 3DS.
Wow.
Fuck!
That's a good one.
Wow.
So, and I had never considered this. I think the assumption right now is that it'll be on both Switch and 3DS.
Yeah, I think that's a smart call. Yeah.
Then I think that's what a lot of people are assuming, but I mean, it's kind of without any real cause. It just, it's one of those misconceptions we get. I think after they just announced actually a month back or so, they announced the new 2DS XL, right? Which came way out of left field. We thought, the 3DS is on its deathbed, right? They got a couple titles left for this year, and then by 2018 it'd be done ostensibly. But I think that it's got a lot more life in it, at least from a Nintendo's perspective. They
came out and said that they're going to be supporting it for a while, didn't they?
Well, right, but no one ever takes them seriously when they say things like that, right? The three pillars.
We'll have
GBA
plenty of NES classics.
Well, if you go back to when the DS was announced, like they said they were going to support the GBA for however long, and obviously, they're a lot of lip service, often. But I think in this case, I think they're going to try to string this one out. So I think this next Pokemon game will be 3DS only.
My only argument against that is I don't think it hurts Nintendo at all to put them on both, because it'll definitely be on 3DS no matter what, because that's the install base, and they always release Pokemon on the biggest install base. But I don't think it hurts them to have it also come out on the Switch, because
And I'm not going under a matter of like more so that they're just not making it, or maybe they are, but it's just way behind, right?
Yeah, I understand that, and maybe it comes out first on 3DS. But your prediction is it comes out this fall only on 3DS. So if it comes out next year on Switch, you're still correct. I think that's an interesting one. It's a bold move.
It hurts, but it's possible.
Yeah. I guess I'll go next with my first prediction. Looking at it here, I had the mobile and Animal Crossing thing written down, so I had to scratch that off. Thanks, Logan. So I think I got one. This just sprung to me when we were having this conversation. This isn't one I had written down. I think that they're completely going to restructure Super Mario Run. We've seen that though Fire Emblem wasn't downloaded as many times as Super Mario Run, its sales and the amount of money it made for Nintendo were through the roof in comparison to Super Mario Run. So I think that what they're going to do is they're going to change the complete structure of the game, the microtransaction structure. I think it's going to completely go free to play, and they're changing the entire model. And I think that's going to be their shadow drop for E3. I think they're going to be like, yeah, Super Mario Run is now free to play. You can play it now. You don't have to spend $10. But it'll have all those microtransactions to get people's money anyways. I don't think Super Mario Run is a game that they ever intended on being a game where they released on mobile and then never touched it again and let's see how it fares. I think Mario is their icon, and I think them seeing what happened with Fire Emblem Heroes, they took two different approaches with those games, and I think they're more than willing to commit the time that it takes to restructure Super Mario Run to make it earn more money for them. So I think they're going to announce a restructuring of it. It's free to play now. Go download it, have fun, yada yada yada. That's my first prediction.
I like that.
Not too much there. If you want to go ahead and give us your first one, Jordan.
Sure. So all of mine are Switch related, and we talked about this kind of, but I think my prediction itself is different enough. Jared, you were asking if we're going to see a Metroid this year, and I think yes, but I think the big surprise is, first of all, I think it'd be really cool if we got two games like you were saying, but what I think we're going to get is just a total reboot of the Metroid series, and I think we're going to see a third-person Metroid game.
Oh.
And so it'll be third-person action, probably like some light RPG elements, third-person action shooter, and I think this hopefully is what they need to revamp that series and to make it a little more mainstream, a little more accessible, and get people into it, because people that are into Metroid are really into Metroid because it is a cool series and it has a great history, but they've really fumbled it, especially since the year 2000, especially after Metroid Prime 2 and 3. They started really fucking things up.
Question for you, because I'm pretty sure you too, Logan, have played Horizon Zero Dawn. Man, if a Metroid game came out in this environment where it shows that having a female protagonist doesn't hurt your game. If you make a great game which just so happens to have a female protagonist, it's going to be fantastic, right? And I think being able to have Samus lead a franchise again and having that reboot and having her there, and it's not going to be the secret where you finish the game, they take off their helmet and it's a female. Like, no one knew that, right? I think now leading with Samus being the female protagonist and being badass, I think would be really cool. It could be very viable.
That'll be interesting to see how much they lean into that. Obviously, it wouldn't be a secret, but yeah, are they making her a badass female, or are they just keeping her in a suit and making her a badass space marine?
Exactly. We'll see. Yeah. I think that's an interesting call. So third-person Metroid game. Interesting take.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah. Logan, what's your second one? Hit us with your second prediction.
I'm going to do one that I think is a layup here. I think this is a pretty good guess as well. We're going to finally see Pikmin 4 because Miyamoto has hinted at that in the past, and I don't think the one he's hinted at is 3DS one, if I'm mistaken.
Pikmin.
Hey,
Pikmin.
Hey,
Pikmin.
So I think that, according to what people have said, like, this game is ready to go for the most part. We just haven't heard of it. So I'm surprised that they haven't talked about it yet. And like I said, unless I'm really wrong, and hey, Pikmin was the one that people were talking about. But I do think Pikmin 4 is ready to go, or at least close. I feel like releasing this fall makes sense, but we'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if it slipped the next year. But yeah, we'll finally see that revealed. Then time to get Pikmin 4 on the Switch.
Pikmin 4, interesting. Yeah, that seems like Pikmin is super underwhelming.
Is that a regular Pikmin game, or is it Pikmin 4 and it's a golf game?
That'd be pretty good. You get Olimar out there hitting the links.
Yeah, and then it's kind of, bringing back the whole exclamation point. Hey, Pikmin 4!
I think it'll be a regular Pikmin game, but Pikmin Golf's not a bad idea, though.
Well, you might see something else pertaining to something like that later on.
Dom, what's your second prediction?
All right, so this one is, I think, maybe it's already rumored and speculated a lot, but nothing's been official, so I think it's worthy of a prediction here. I'm going to say Nintendo gives us GameCube Virtual Console on the Switch, but this year they first give us Super Mario Sunshine, probably August or so, and then probably October or so, they drop Luigi's Mansion, and that's the only two titles they start with. So real specific, probably high probability I'm wrong by being that specific, but
you meant GameCube, right?
What did I say?
Do you think there's...
I'm pretty sure you said Game Boy, but I know you meant GameCube.
Yeah, then I meant GameCube.
Yeah.
Is there any way they're going to shadow drop Virtual Console at E3?
No. Not a chance.
I would love that.
I think it's possible for, NES games, maybe. Or, there's an update to the eShop tomorrow, and I could see it.
Yeah.
Something smaller.
So, for mine, I think, a lot of our predictions are going to be things we don't necessarily know about so far, or takes on things. For me, I'm sticking in the Mario wheelhouse, as my first prediction was Super Mario Run. I'm going to say that at E3 this year, during the E3 week, after they do their spotlight in their treehouse, Super Mario Odyssey is going to go up for pre-order. You can pre-order it. There's going to be a special edition. The most expensive version of Super Mario Odyssey is going to come with that hat with the goggles on it. That's my prediction. That there's going to be a special edition of Super Mario Odyssey that comes with the hat included. I think that's my prediction.
I think that's a great prediction.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be...
They're pushing that hat.
Yep. That's pretty much it. Nothing crazy. I just wanted to throw that in there because I kind of want that to happen. I'm not going to pre-order anything, but I think that's a cool little, have that hat for people. I think that'd be a cool little bonus in there. Jordan, what's your second?
A cool thing that someone's going to make $1,000 off selling it on eBay one day.
Exactly. Like the NES Classic.
So, yeah, I actually, real quick, as we were going back around, I was thinking a little piece to add on to my first one about Metroid. Now, Jared, just get ready here. Put your bib on, because I'm about to feed you.
Okay, hold on. Let me tie it up real quick. Okay, ready?
Okay, all right.
Ready?
All right. You got your fork and your knife?
Yep.
Think about this. So, just imagine now, this... Don't think of this example on the Source side, but think of this Metroid Prime third-person game with the third-person shooting action kind of format that Mass Effect Andromeda had.
Ooh,
where obviously it's very pretty looking. It's got the jetpack move around, but then in the Metroid game it would be the rolling ball type deal. And so you're dashing around, and it's very fast-paced, and all these particle explosions and stuff going on. That's the kind of vibe I'm thinking of.
Ooh. Speaking of that real quick, man, it's such a shame that Mass Effect Andromeda has suffered what it has, because that gameplay is phenomenal. The fact that I can pretend to be a Saiyan in a sci-fi game, I can be a Dragon Ball Z Saiyan in a sci-fi game. That's insane to me. That's super
What do you mean by that?
Well, just it has the some of the biotic moves kind of feel like you're darting and dipping through air and punching people in midair, the instant teleportation kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay. Man. Where they're like in Dragon Ball Z when they're teleporting and stuff.
Exactly. Okay, yeah. I'm like, hell yeah, this is
I'm on your
the Dragon Ball Z game I've always wanted. I like that little addition. Give us your second prediction.
Yeah, so my actual prediction.
Yeah.
So I hinted at this when Logan came up with the genius idea for Pikmin 4, the golf game. And so this is a Mario sports game that's going to be announced at E3. Obviously the Mario sports, there's multiple Mario franchises, right? There's obviously the main 2D and 3D. There's the Mario Sports franchise. Then there's the Mario and Sonic at the Olympics franchise that nobody gives a fuck about. So there's all these different Mario franchises, and the sports franchises, or just the sports franchise in general, I think is very popular. And so we're absolutely, I think, going to be getting plenty of these types of games on the Switch, just as we have on the Wii U and the Wii U and the 3DS and DS. And so I really don't have any idea what sport they're going to do first, but if I had to guess, I'm going to go with soccer because those striker games are fucking awesome, and I know people love them. If I had to go with a second guess, I'd say golf, but of course Pikmin 4 has already taken that, so.
Interesting. I mean, it's kind of a safe bet. I don't know if that's a game that they announce at E3 or if it's one that comes out in like the September Direct, but I do think it's a safe call though. Like, there's going to be something revolving around Mario that isn't Odyssey. Something.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been a while since we got a Mario sports game too.
Yeah, or a good
There was one on the
Mario
3DS. There was one on the 3DS not too long ago.
Yeah, they just released, I think, either this month or last month. It was Mario Sports Superstars, where it's kind of a compilation of several different sports games on the 3DS.
But, or we can get a good Super Mario Party game. Or Mario Party.
Yes.
Because the last one wasn't very good. I like Mario
Keep it
Party.
dead.
I like Mario
I think
Party.
tennis would be great. Baseball would be great. They've been great in the past, but
Mario Golf is probably
damn.
a good shot too, man. People love their Mario Golf.
Yeah, but I think I would really, and honestly, I'm not a huge sports fan. I'm not a huge sports game fan, but I love Mario sports games. I love the tennis, even the basketball. I love it all. So, if we got Mario Strikers 3, just the announcement this year, man, that game is going to be awesome on the Switch.
Okay, Logan, start closing us out. Each of our last predictions.
So I had two that I was going between here, and one of them is more like an anti-prediction, like something I don't think we will see. So I'll instead go with the other one. I think we do see I talked about Mario Maker earlier and how I think we see that. I think there was 3 games from the Wii U that we'll eventually see on the Switch, one of which was Mario Kart, which is now out, one of which is Mario Maker, which I think we will still see, like I said, and then the last one is, of course, Super Smash Bros. I think we're going to see a port of that to the Switch at some point in the future. I think that gets revealed here. Plus, I think we're going to see 2 new characters, so we'll see 2 of those fancy new character reveal trailers like they always used to show leading up to the release of the game. Who they will be, I don't know. I'm not going to go out on a limb to predict those, but I think we see 2 new characters coming to the game. I think it comes out later this year, and then I think, to make it even crazier, the GameCube adapter will be compatible with the Switch.
Oh, boy.
Which then means that we will be using controllers from 3 consoles ago.
I think that's where you're going off
crazy.
the bridge, man. I think that's the one thing that I don't think they're willing to do.
I mean, there's a place for it on the Switch. There's those 2 USB spots.
I'm adding to your prediction with the 2 new characters. I'm calling that one of them is going to be one of those little Splatoon bastards, one of those little squid kids.
Throw paint at people and shit.
Yeah. They threw them into Mario Kart, man, for the port. I could definitely see them. They want it to be a thing.
Oh, no. No. Sorry. The ARMS guys.
Oh, well, one guy could probably be an
No.
DNA
I'm
Man.
seeing the Challenger approaches screen, and it's like that little squid bastard, that little Splatoon bastard.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna write down specifically because I want to keep track of all these to see how poorly all of us did.
I wrote my own down too, by the way.
I'm putting down Smash and Maker ports. The GameCube thing is kind of like a bonus, but I agree with Jordan. I mean, you have a point that there is slots on there, but it does seem like a very weird Nintendo thing. But we don't know what Nintendo does. They're Nintendo. Yeah. So who knows?
I just feel like actually, I'll bridge that into my next prediction.
Dom, what's your last prediction for us? You've already predicted Stars is coming out only on the 3DS, and we're getting Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion. Those are the first 2 GameCube Virtual Console games.
Jeez.
All right, I got another one that I think is probably more likely than not, but you might not like it. Ready? Super Mario Odyssey. Like everyone assumes, I think we get it in November, but we get a season pass.
Ugh.
Oh.
Wait, now, Jared,
Zelda
are
season
you...
Ugh.
Jared, are you opposed to season passes in general, or just for Nintendo games, or just when they make you buy the pass and can't buy them individually?
There's no reason to call it a season pass if you can't buy them individually. That's my
Okay,
point.
I agree with that.
That's a good point.
My other point is I don't like the game-breaking Nintendo Switch shirt in Zelda. But as far as them doing content, it seems like it's worth it. Like they're putting the worth in it, minus like the hard mode. You should never have to pay for a difficulty mode in a game. I don't like that at all. But like, yeah,
So-
the fact that they call it a season pass, it's not a season pass. It's buy the
Yeah,
DLC
that's
package.
stupid. That's dumb. The Switch thing, I think, is on the internet generally blown out of proportion. My question for you is, all of these things, all of these DLC costumes that they just announced as part of the season pass that isn't a season pass, how is that not more game breaking than the Switch shirt? I mean, I realize that those are from the Zelda universe, but they shouldn't be in this Link's world or
Except for the
storyline,
Korok
should they?
suit. Except for the Korok suit. Because that one's like, there's Koroks there, so you could like kill one of them and skin them alive and make one, you know?
Right, but, you know, there could be, you know, the Legend of Switch out there or something where, you know what I mean? I'm just saying,
Well,
like,
it's easier
they're
to
pulling
RP.
these...
It's easier to RP in a Majora's Mask Link costume than running around in a Nintendo Switch shirt. You know, I don't
Yeah.
think
I
it's
totally
that
agree.
crazy,
I just
but-
think that...
Yeah.
I just think that most of the reasons that people are complaining about this online, it's like, well, look at all these costumes that aren't from that universe technically
Exactly.
either.
Yeah. I hear you there. I just don't like that they call it a season pass and it's not a season pass.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it would be dope. I think what Dom's saying, it would be dope if we get DLC for Mario
Oh yeah,
Odyssey.
I'm in. That's the whole reason I told you guys. That's the game I'm in. I'm gonna have a Switch
Yeah.
before Super Mario Odyssey releases. It's my
Okay,
Legend of
cool.
Zelda Breath of the Wild. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good call. Dom, for bonus points, what's the price point gonna be?
$30, but
Ooh.
you can buy each of the 2 DLC packs separately this time.
For 15 each? Okay. I'm
Well, are
assuming.
they gonna
no,
be-
it would be
I guess it would have to
20
be
each.
20.
Yeah.
Well, you said
So
said
are
39. I
they,
think you said 30. My bad.
Yeah, 30.
Okay.
Well, he's saying 30, but if you buy them separately, they're more.
I got you.
Right,
I
right.
got you.
You get the
20
bulk
individually,
discount.
30 for bundle.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah.
So Dom, are they going to be 2 like level packs where, you know, it's like, well, there's this many more stars to collect or whatever, or is it like Zelda where one of them's a story thing and one of them's like challenge maps kind of?
I think this is off the record of my prediction. I'm getting too specific here. But I'll go ahead and say I think it'll be more like Zelda, where one of them is some new modes type of thing, and then some visual costumes or whatever, that kind of thing. And then the other one will be more more gameplay stuff, new levels, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of contradicts the price points I named out, so fuck me, whatever.
So my last prediction, depending on what Jordan's going to say, might be the only third-party prediction we're going to have. So,
It will be.
okay, lock it in, folks. My prediction, hear me out. 10 years ago, I'm just kidding. So Ubisoft has a track record of supporting Nintendo, right? They're one of the third
Beyond
parties.
Good and Evil 2, huh, Jared?
No, I wish. No, I'm not going that crazy. What I think is going to happen is Assassin's Creed Origins is going to come out this year. It's going to be announced it's not coming out day and date for Nintendo Switch. That's not happening, right? We've seen the screenshot of that game. I don't think the Nintendo Switch is powerful enough to run that game. Maybe they might port it down or something. But what I think they are going to do, Ubisoft, is to fill that gap for people who own a Switch that want to play Assassin's Creed. I think that they're going to be porting the Ezio collection over to the Switch. I think that's going to be coming over.
Oh!
Those games are older games. They're not super
Oh,
graphic
boy.
intensive. You know, they're a little bit dated. And I think
That would be the first time they were on a Nintendo console.
yeah, but I do think that, for a lot of third parties, they're seeing that the Switch is outselling their expectations. It's a lot more promising than Wii U. And I think that, Ubisoft wants Assassin's Creed to be big again. So I think that them pairing the Ezio collection coming out on Switch with Origins coming out this fall on everywhere else, I think will be a nice blend of everything. And if for some reason Origins somehow does come out on Switch in the future, which I don't think it ever will, it'll be a nice buffer of like, hey, you're not getting the new one now, but we're giving you something in the meantime, you know? And
that would be fucking awesome.
it's not like I'm saying Syndicate's coming or something. I think the Ezio Collection is a lot more reasonable as far as performance correlating with the Switch. So yeah, I think they announced the Ezio Collection coming to the Nintendo Switch. That's my prediction. Yep.
Not too bad.
Jordan.
So yeah, once again, I hinted at one of my predictions. I think that, you know, what Logan was talking about with the GameCube controller adapters, I feel like, obviously the Switch is kind of a modular console with the way that the Joy-Cons slide in and out, with the way that you slide it into the dock or take it on the go. And I feel like they're trying, the way that they put it out and the accessories that they put out with it, I think they're trying to simplify a lot more than they were during the Wii and Wii U generations, because, you know, you had all these Wii remotes, and then you had your the kind of like SNES looking controller, and then you had your Pro controller. There's all different kinds of accessories for the Wii and Wii U. Like, I'm talking just official stuff. And then I just feel like they're really trying to simplify that with the Switch. So I don't think that we're going to be getting those GameCube controllers. I hope that that's not the case, because I know that that will help whatever Smash console it is come out, or Smash software that comes out. I think it'll help it in the like tournament system or whatever. But yeah, basically this prediction is just about Switch accessories. I think, to be specific, I think at E3 we're going to see a Switch battery extender, because
For the
they've
actual
already
Switch.
given us they've already given us the Joy-Con battery extenders, which seem pretty useless, but I think the reason they did that is because when you're undocked, the Joy-Cons are just pulling power constantly from your Switch, and so if you have those things on there, then they're not going to be doing that, and that'll make your Switch last longer itself. But I still think they need to fix the battery problem with the Switch, and it would be nice if you could have something that they do as the first party that really kind of just, like, you know, sticks onto the back of it, so maybe it is a little bit thicker, but you still have access to all your ports. It fits in perfectly, and it doesn't look too bad or bulky. So I think that's...
Jump off that?
Yes,
think they charge
but I
$100
just want to say that... Or what were you going to say? Sorry.
I say, you're probably right, and then they charge $100 for that thing.
Yeah, so of course they're going to overcharge for whatever the fuck they do. They've shown that with this garbage-ass dock that they're charging essentially $100 for to get with the AC adapter that is clearly a necessity in that situation. But I also just wanted to say, I think they're going to be doing more accessories, but they're just going to be really essential stuff, really stuff that you're like, ooh, yeah, I'd love to have that on my Switch. And it's not going to be what I feel like a lot of the stuff was in the Wii and Wii U generation that was just fluff.
Yeah. It'd be hilarious if they released that NES controller that they did for the Classic with the same length of cord, and you could plug it into your Switch, dude. And it's like a foot. It'd be horrible.
See, and that's another thing is, like, they're making everything wireless and really streamlined, I think, with these accessories. So that plays a big part of it. I guess what I'm trying to say is I gave you my specific prediction, but I'm also just predicting in general the direction that they're going with Switch accessories. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting those cool augmented Joy-Cons that we all thought of, where, you know, they're like the different controllers, the GameCube Joy-Cons or the Wii Remote Joy-Cons and so on.
I think that's a pretty solid prediction. I think we could definitely see some accessory announcements at E3. Some fillers in terms of, like, not everybody wants to see those because they want to see the games, but I think that will still be solid nonetheless. That does it for our Nintendo prediction episode. Thank you again, Logan, for joining us. Can you please let everybody know where to find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I am at moreman12, and then if you want to find a bunch of random work I'm doing, you can head over to modelcitizensmedia.com or follow my written stuff over at DualShockers.
Hell yeah. Thanks again for joining us. You were on about a month ago. Glad to have you back for our Nintendo E3 special. Have you on soon again before the end of the year, more than likely.
For sure.
Yeah. I've been on his podcast as well. It's the Millennial Game Speak. I was on a couple of episodes. I'm probably going to eventually just put him into a playlist on our channel, like videos we're in that aren't on our channel. So if you just go to our YouTube channel, you'll probably find it there by the time this posts. That's pretty much it, I guess. Tune in to the rest of our E3 coverage. The way these are going out, this will probably be the second one that goes up. So definitely tune into our Microsoft, our EA, and all of our other ones. And hopefully we get everything we want at E3 this year. Hopefully. Bye.